This is every single fight to make next after UFC Fight Night Vegas 75, Vettori versus Cannonier. I have all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Jared Cannonier wins very, very impressively against Marvin Vettori. There's some conversations about him calling out Khamzat Chimaev as long as he gets a title shot if he wins, but I don't see them making Jared Cannonier versus Khamzat Chimaev next. I do think they're going to pull off Khamzat Chimaev versus Kamaru Usman in October. I have a strong feeling about that. There's no way they'd make Khamzat Chimaev wait for longer than a year to fight again after his last one. So I feel like it's going to be Jared Cannonier versus another middleweight that's up and coming. I think Cannonier's got to win 3 in a row. I reckon he's got to take on Paulo Costa. If Paulo Costa beats Ikram Aliskerov, okay, which is an upcoming matchup that may be happening in July, but we're not sure yet. Paulo Costa still hasn't said that that fight is official, but if it is, that's a massive matchup, and if Paulo Costa can win, or if Ikram Aliskerov can win, I guess they can get a shot against Jared Cannonier. Maybe not if Ikram Aliskerov wins, maybe then you'd give the shot against Cannonier to someone else, but if Paulo Costa wins, I want to see this matchup in the middleweight division. This would be an absolute war guaranteed. You can put it on the main card of a pay-per-view. You can put it in a fight night main event. Jared Cannonier, Paulo Costa at the end of the year in November or December. Sign me up. That's an amazing matchup in the middleweight division. And if Whittaker and Duplessis can't make it to the Adesanya fight in September, then maybe Jared Cannonier could get that Adesanya fight, because in all fairness, he has won 2 since losing to Adesanya. He did take Adesanya to a decision, and he did arguably win round 3 against Adesanya as well, and he showed improvements in his fight with Vettori. So worst comes to worst, he will be getting a title shot in September, but ideal circumstance, in my opinion, is him versus Paulo Costa. We move on to the loser of the main event, Marvin Vettori. First of all, I don't want to see this man back in there until the end of the year. I was going to say early next year, but you just can't have him waiting out for that long. He took so much damage in this fight. I think I'm going to make a second channel video about all of the shots that he took on the chin in that fight, because it was absolutely ridiculous. But Marvin Vettori, he didn't get KO'd. He took a lot of damage. So I'm saying 6 months off, come back in December, and come back against, I know they're friends, come back against the winner of Sean Strickland versus Abbas Magomedov. I know it could be Abbas Magomedov that gets the win over Sean Strickland. I might even pick him to do so, but if Sean Strickland wins, this is going to be a big matchup, and I think it's the only fight that Marvin can get that's still a big fight that's going to put him in a decent position on a card, because otherwise he's going to have to take on some of these lesser names in the middleweight division way down the rankings. But if Sean Strickland wins in July against Abbas Magomedov, then you can do him versus Marvin Vettori at the end of November, at the start of December preferably, so we can have Vettori take 6 months off. But I think that's a perfect matchup, because it's going to happen eventually, and you might as well do it now before Marvin Vettori maybe slips out the rankings, before maybe Strickland slips out the rankings. I don't want both of these guys to be done, and we never got to see this matchup, because I think if you add this to the main card of a pay-per-view and let them at a press conference, let them get onto a press conference for a pay-per-view, that will add a lot of pay-per-view buyers, because I'm sure they'll make it interesting. So I think Marvin Vettori, Sean Strickland in December, fight night main event, or maybe also a pay-per-view main card fight as well, I think is a good matchup, and the winner of that can take on another up-and-comer and then maybe get their title elimination bout. But if Strickland wins, maybe he'll get a title elimination bout straight away. Who knows? But again, if Abbas wins, maybe they do Abbas versus Marvin Vettori. Bunch of matchups you can make in the middleweight division right now, but let's try and get some movement using Vettori against the winner of Strickland versus Abbas Magomedov. We move on to the co-main event. Armand Tsarukyan won in the co-main event after a bit of a shaky moment in round 2. He pulls it off. Very, very good job by Armand Tsarukyan. He didn't look amazing, okay, which I think is actually kind of better. Because although there would be a lot of hype if he were to go in there against like an Islam Makhachev after absolutely dominating everyone before that, there would be a lot more hype. But I kind of like that Armand Tsarukyan got humbled a little bit. He's going to be training harder. He got caught on the chin in the second round. He got kept honest in the fight. And I think that it kind of makes these upcoming matchups for him a little bit more interesting, because if he was just dominating everyone outside the top 5, people would have this like preconceived notion that he's going to beat the top 5 guys. But now we know those matchups are going to be interesting, because if Joaquin Silva can catch you on the chin and rock you, there's a lot of guys in the top 5 who can. So I think it should be Arman Tsarukyan versus Beneil Dariush. Now, Arman Tsarukyan says that he'll fight Beneil Dariush if Dariush fights in October. First of all, shut up, okay? You don't get to call the shots whatsoever. You're lucky you're getting a top 5 opponent at this point, because they don't want to give you a top 5 opponent, okay? And not many people in the top 5 are going to be willing to fight you. Don't get into a position where you finally got a chance at a top 5 guy and all of a sudden start saying, I'll only fight him if he fights in October. No, you'll do as you're told, okay? Just take a McGregor quote. You'll do as you're told, okay? And you won't say anything about it. You'll fight at the end of the year against Beneil Dariush and give Dariush enough time to recover. I don't want to see Arman Tsarukyan fight a Dariush who's gone a quick turnaround after losing by KO to Charles Oliveira. I want this fight to be maybe a fight night Apex main event in December. Maybe it could also be on like the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view, something along those lines. I think if you offer a lot of these fighters a chance on the McGregor pay-per-view at the end of the year, if McGregor does fight in December, then they will definitely accept it and be more willing to wait around for that big moment. Because I reckon you could do McGregor versus Chandler main event in December, co-main event. If Ian Gary beats Jeff Neal, you can do him versus the winner of Wonderboy versus Pereira. Maybe it's Wonderboy versus Ian Gary. Then you could do like a Paddy Pimblett versus the winner of Bobby Green, Tony Ferguson. Also on that December pay-per-view card, Marvin Vettori versus Sean Strickland, Arman Tsarukyan, Beneil Dariush. You've got yourself a card made already. That would be amazing. Maybe even do, if Garn beats Spivak and Aspinall beats Tybura, you can do Aspinall-Garn as the co-main event of the McGregor pay-per-view. There's a lot they can do with it, but all I'm saying is, I think this is the most logical matchup for Arman Tsarukyan schedule-wise. Take some time off, though, Arman. You got rocked in the second round. Youth is on your side. Time is on your side. There's no need to rush Dariush. He's not getting any younger. Wait out until the end of the year, get a big spotlight fight against him, and then you'll be looking at title elimination bouts at the start of 2024. We move on to Arman Petrosyan, a different Arman. Arman Petrosyan got a big win against Christian Leroy Duncan, won the fight by decision. Took some damage, but I don't think he's going to have to be out for 6 months. He's not too young either, so I could see him maybe looking to get back in there around November at the end of the year. So I say they should do Arman Petrosyan versus another middleweight who is Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, coming off a big win against Edmund Shabazian, I believe about a month ago. So he's not in any rush either, and he's a young contender, so he can take some time. I just don't see any of these ranked guys being available and ready for a fight against either of these two right now. So I think the best thing to do is to put them against each other and then naturally rank them at like number 14 or 13 or something along those lines. Rather than having them outside the rankings. Maybe Hernandez is ranked already, but rather than having them low down in the rankings or just outside the rankings and then trying to get them fights against ranked opponents, give them a number and then more ranked opponents are going to be willing to fight them. So I think they should do Arman Petrosyan, Anthony Hernandez, winner gets number 14 or 15. If Hernandez isn't there already, I think that would be perfect in the middleweight division. Plus, we need to see Arman Petrosyan deal with grappling, and I think it would be good to see Anthony Hernandez deal with like a good on the back foot type striker like Arman Petrosyan, who does have, he's known to have decent takedown defense so far in his career. So I think it should be Petrosyan versus Hernandez. We move on to another fight. Pat Sabatini got a big win against Lucas Almeida. Took no damage whatsoever, so I want a real quick turnaround from him. Or maybe he can fight in MSG. I know he's from that region of the US. So he can fight at MSG on the prelims against Bill Algeo, which I think should make all the sense in the world. Bill Algeo, just outside the rankings, coming off a win right now as well in the featherweight division. Pat Sabatini, dangerous up-and-comer, can grapple a lot. Bill Algeo's known for really good scrambles and good takedown defense and stays calm if you have his back and stuff like that. So I think it would be an interesting test for Pat Sabatini if we can see him go out there against Algeo, who can maybe stuff his takedowns, make him scramble, and push a pace on the feet to try and break him later on. So I think this is a decent bridge fight Maybe they could do this on a fight night in October and keep the momentum going, because I think both of them should be ready to go right now. Sabatini took no damage in his last fight that just happened. So I think Pat Sabatini, Bill Algeo, decent test for each of them. And the winner of that one can start looking towards the bottom of the rankings of the featherweight division. We move on. Manuel Torres with an amazing win. An amazing win over Nicholas Motta. Very, very good elbow. Keep it going. We don't want to wait with this guy right now, okay? There's someone who got injured who I don't think is going to be looking to take too much time off. They pulled out of a fight recently. Now Guram Kutsaledze has taken on their opponent on short notice. They were supposed to fight in July. They've had to postpone it. The UFC didn't want to postpone it, so they kept the fight on the card and gave the fight to Guram. But someone who I think is going to be looking to get back in there in about 4 months' time, maybe, is Jordan Levitt. So I think you need to keep Manuel Torres very, very active. He just has a ton of hype behind him right now after that elbow that he landed. Give him another guy low down in the rankings in Jordan Levitt in the lightweight division, and I think he'll be able to score another wicked finish. But also, Jordan Levitt is a known name because he fought Paddy Pimblett and he's sus. So I think it's a known name to put in there against Manuel Torres, who can try and build his name off of this. But the winner of this matchup is someone to look out for outside the rankings in the lightweight division. So I think they should do Torres versus Levitt. See how good Torres' defensive grappling is, because I think he will have an advantage on the feet in that matchup. So I think that's a good fight. Do it in October. Do it on like a fight night card, main card. I think it's a great matchup to make. We move on. But keep him active. Let's not have Manuel Torres out till the end of the year. Let's get him back in there October. Maybe even late September. Who knows? We move on to another fight. Nicholas Dalby got a big win over Muslim Salikov. Huge win over Muslim Salikov. And it puts him in a really good position. A really, really good position, because he's put together a 2-fight win streak now. He's put together some wins. He's got a bit of momentum. He just beat Muslim Salikov. Biggest win of his career, arguably, so far. So I think he's earned to be sacrificed to Jeremiah Wells. I think that's what he's earned from that amazing performance that he just had. And Jeremiah Wells is going to need someone just outside the rankings that's going to get him a good fight. And I think Nicholas Dalby will take that fight. Didn't take too much damage against Salikov. Got hit a couple of times, but not anything too bad. So I think at the end of the year, maybe in MSG, on the early prelims, you do Nicholas Dalby versus Jeremiah Wells. And I think if Jeremiah Wells wins that one, you can start looking at ranked opponents for him. If Nicholas Dalby wins, you can start using him to rebound some guy that just lost inside the rankings. I think that'll be a decent matchup in the welterweight division, because I want to see Chaos Williams versus Joaquin Buckley. And I want to see Mike Malott versus Li Jingliang. These are the matchups that I want to see, and that leaves out Jeremiah Wells. So I think give him Nicholas Dalby, and if he wins, you can start talking about ranked opponents. We move on. Cassandro, something along those lines. Alessandro Costa is his name, I believe. Very, very good win that he had on the prelims in the flyweight division. Got a big win over Jimmy Flick. That's his name. Alessandro Costa got a big win over Jimmy Flick in the flyweight division on the prelims. Got a nice TKO. And another guy that got a nice TKO that made a few headlines and got a bit of views was Carlos Hernandez, who was also on the prelims at the same time. So they're on exactly the same schedule. They both got great finishes. They both made a name for themselves on that card. People know of them right now. So I think turn them both back around, pair them up against each other. They're on the same schedule. They're both coming off TKO wins where they didn't take crazy amounts of damage. Maybe Carlos Hernandez needs a little bit of time, but I'm saying put him on an October fight night card, late October, against each other. Let's just keep people in the know of these two. Don't let them sit out for ages. Get them back in there and put them against each other. And the winner of that one will start looking at ranked opponents in the flyweight division. So I think it should be that. Alessandro Costa, Carlos Hernandez. Just makes sense scheduling-wise. We move on. Modestas Bukauskas got a win-ish against Pauga. Very, very close fight, but he was given a unanimous decision win. Somehow 30-27, which I don't agree with, but he was given the win. So Modestas Bukauskas is going to be looking for a decent step up in competition in the light heavyweight division. You can't keep giving him bottom feeders. That's 2 in a row. Pedro wasn't even a bottom feeder, so that was actually a decent win that he got. But Pauga was quite low down, so I think it's time to give him a little bit of a jump up, but nothing too crazy yet. And I think that nothing too crazy, but a bit of a jump up is Devin Clark. Seems to be the bit of the test for a lot of these light heavyweight prospects. and I think it should be no different for Modestas Bukauskas. Put them against each other at the end of the year, November. I know Devin Clark just took a ton of damage against Kennedy Nzechukwu. Modestas didn't really take too much damage against Pauga, so I say give him 5 months. We're not in a rush. Put them against each other at the start of November on a fight night card, and the winner of that one will start looking towards those names that are going to get him towards maybe earning a ranked opponent afterwards. So yeah, Modestas, time for a step up. Risky matchup against Devin Clark, but it's now or never with him, so I think just keep the ball rolling and fight again before the end of the year. Maybe even on the McGregor card's early prelim opener, just in case he gets a good finish for once, and then we can put some star power behind him. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Those are all the fights to make. Yeah.